What is up, guys? It is Marcus from Perspective Sports, and today we have our final video in the NFL 2017 season predictions, and this is the playoff version of it. And as we already done, we went division by division for the AFC and NFC in separate videos. So if you haven't, the links are in the description to go check those out. But with further ado, let's dive right into Wild Card Weekend, and we're going to go week by week, but we're going to start with the NFC. And in the NFC, we have the New York Giants and Atlanta Falcons as the 1 and 2 seed, and they'll receive the bye. And in the wild card games, we have the Washington Redskins visiting the Green Bay Packers at Lambeau Field, and the Dallas Cowboys traveling up north to face the Seattle Seahawks. Just FYI, I did do a score for these, but take them with a grain of salt because it's just to give you an idea of how the flow of the game is. So don't really read into the score that much. I just wanted to give you guys a flow of how the game would go. And we have the Washington Redskins at the Green Bay Packers. And the Packers are going to win this game and likely lead wire to wire. The Redskins have a good but limited offense. Now that they've lost Deshaun Jackson and Pierre Garçon, literally Kirk Cousins' top 2 of his favorite 3 targets. And I don't see them keeping up with Aaron Rodgers in that elite level offense. The Packers have a great offensive line, a great receiving core. And we're going to see how the running backs do this year, but I think doing it by committee will work for the Packers, and it'll be just enough for them to control the tempo in games. And there's just not much to this game. I know it was a bland analysis of this game, and it was a bad way to start, but there's just not much to this matchup. The Redskins don't have what they had last year. They don't have that dynamic of an offense. They have Terrell Pryor, but when you look at the Redskins' offense, they don't really have much of anything outside of Terrell Pryor, Jordan Reed, Kirk Cousins, Rob Kelly. He's good, but he's not going to carry the load. The Redskins have a good offensive line, but it's not great, and they also have a defense that's built to bend, not break, but it's hard to do that when you don't have a lead. And so there's not much to this game. The Packers will win this game, and I picked the score to be 34-20. Like I said, take the scores with a grain of salt. Up next, we have the Dallas Cowboys traveling to play the Seattle Seahawks. And as for this game, this will be a dandy if both teams are relatively healthy heading into this game. We'll have the young, talented Cowboys offense versus the grizzled, veteran Seahawks defense. This game will likely be close throughout because there's so many factors that can play into the outcome of this game. The first being, can the Seahawks offense keep up with Dallas's? Because with that O-line still a concern, the running back still a concern, I don't think Eddie Lacy will be the answer for Seattle. And when you look at the Seattle team, they're very one-dimensional. They don't really have a running back. They have a makeshift running back core with Eddie Lacy, Mike Davis, and a rookie Chris Carson. But this team is very one-dimensional when you think about it and when you look at it. And it's going to be hard to beat a team like Dallas being one-dimensional, despite them not having the best of defenses. The second thing is that will play a factor in this game is, can the young Cowboys roster avoid the big mistake down the stretch? Because we know Dak, Zeke, Dez, and that O-line will be good. They can control the tempo of the game. But can the defense be able to hold up in late game situations? But with that being said, I think the Cowboys will defeat the Seahawks because they're built to outlast Seattle's, whose offense hasn't really been all that dynamic since Marshawn Lynch left. They were 12th overall last season, but 26th in rushing. That goes to my point of them being one-dimensional. And you're not going to defeat a Dallas team being one-dimensional. Also, the Cowboys can and will control the tempo of this game and will have the most time in possession because of Ezekiel Elliott. And I'm going to pick the Cowboys to win this game 27-18. So the divisional round in the NFC, we have the Dallas Cowboys going to play the rival New York Giants for the 3rd time this season, and the Green Bay Packers getting their rematch versus the Atlanta Falcons. Over in the AFC, we have a couple of solid matchups as the Denver Broncos travel to the Steel City to play the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Kansas City Chiefs will travel up north to play the Indianapolis Colts. We're going to start with the Kansas City Chiefs at the Indianapolis Colts, and this game will be a flat-out mismatch. The Chiefs have the Colts beat in every position except quarterback and number 1 receiver. The Chiefs are just a better team than the Colts, and there's just not much to this matchup, just like there was with the Packers and Redskins. I'm sorry for the bland analysis, but we all know the Chiefs will just overwhelm the Colts, and I have the Chiefs winning this game 34-17. Now over to the Broncos versus Steelers, and this game will start off pretty good. But according to multiple reports right now, the Broncos quarterback battle is just going horribly. And that will most definitely be their downfall versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. They won't be able to score, even on the Steelers' defense, which really isn't all that bad, but it's far from elite. The Steelers would be able to wear down the Denver defense as the game wears on, and there's only so much you can do to start with versus Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, and the Steelers' deep, wide receiving core. And to only make matters worse, Denver's defense will be on the field for a large amount of time in most of the game because their offense can't move the ball. Like I said, no offense will work without a good or at least competent quarterback. And that's why I'm picking the Steelers to win this game 34-17. And after those two games, now we have the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Foxborough to play the New England Patriots, and the Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Northern California to play the Oakland Raiders. And to quickly refresh your memory, in the NFC, we have the Green Bay Packers traveling to play the Atlanta Falcons, and the Dallas Cowboys going up north to play the New York Giants. So those two great matchups in the NFC. So we're going to flip it around this time and start with the AFC. We have the Steelers at Raiders. Pittsburgh in this game will be coming off a big victory over the Raiders' rival Denver Broncos, and the Steelers will jump on the Raiders early, but the Raiders will respond, led by Derek Carr and Marshawn Lynch. This game will quickly turn into an all-out shootout. It'll turn into which team can outlast the other. Not quite like a Big 12 game, but very similar. Neither team really has an elite-level defense or a good enough defense to counter the other's offense. When you think about it, the Raiders' offense is very dynamic. A top 4 offensive line in the game, elite-level quarterback, a solid wide receiving core. That's a pretty good offense. And not to mention Marshawn Lynch, that even if he's 75% of what he was, is still a threat to be reckoned with. And I've also heard people unrealistically rave about how good the Raiders' defense really is, but it's not. It finished 24th in yards allowed. And yes, the Raiders do have great defensive players like Khalil Mack and Sean Smith, but as a unit, it's pretty bad. It allowed the most yards per play last season. It was in the bottom half in the NFL in points per game allowed. And though I believe it'll be better, it won't be a monumental improvement. And I see the Steelers outlasting the Raiders in a shootout. And like I said, all-out shootout, 42-35. And like I said, to take the scores with a grain of salt. But I know you're thinking, wow, come on, man. It's an NFL game, Marcus. 42-35. But when you take into account how dynamic these offenses are and how average at best these defenses are, this is a real possibility. The Raiders gave up the most yards per play, and versus a Pittsburgh Steelers offense, that's going to come back to bite you in the long run, because you can't give up the most yards per play when you're playing Antonio Brown, Big Ben, Le'Veon Bell, Martavis Bryant. This Steelers team is very dangerous. And I picked the Steelers to win just because I feel like I can trust them more down the stretch. Big Ben has been there, done that. Derek Carr is still very young, and I expect Big Ben to make the plays down the stretch to win the game. Up next, we have the Kansas City Chiefs versus New England Patriots. This isn't necessarily the most marketable matchup in football, but fans of the game will appreciate the quality of football on the field. Two of the more complete rosters in the league facing off for the second time this season, and the Patriots in Kansas City Chiefs will face off to open the season. I have New England winning that game for the same reasons I have them winning this game. It'll be a low-scoring affair and will turn into whose offense can score against the other team's stifling defense. And I'm going to take the Patriots. I'm going to side with Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Julian Edelman, Brandon Cooks. Because when you think about it, the Patriots have given the greatest quarterback of all time a ton of weapons to work with. Versus the Kansas City Chiefs, whose most dangerous offensive weapon is Travis Kelce. Who's great, but you're not going to beat New England when he's your primary target. And to make a long story short, the Chiefs don't have enough weapons to keep up with the Patriots. And I'm going to pick the Patriots to win this game 23-16. So that'll set up a rematch of last year's AFC Championship, where the Pittsburgh Steelers will travel to Foxborough to play the New England Patriots. Over in the NFC, we're going to start with the Packers at Falcons. And the Packers will enter Atlanta seeking revenge of last year's game when the Atlanta Falcons dismantled them piece by piece in last year's NFC Championship game. And the Packers will get said revenge. And I say this for a few different reasons. Number one, Kyle Shanahan is gone. People refuse to believe that Kyle Shanahan helped make Matt Ryan better, which is baffling to me, and how Matt Ryan played in the perfect offensive system for both Kyle and Matt. I don't see how people don't see that, but that's fine. And the Falcons still have a very dangerous offense. But again, Matt Ryan won't be as good as last season because that is a statistical outlier of a year. Cam Newton won't be as good as his MVP season because stats-wise, it's an outlier of a year. And I know Falcons fans will be upset. The Falcons still do have an elite-level offense. Julio Jones, Matt Ryan, Mohamed Sanu, Taylor Gabriel, Devontae Freeman. They have Tevin Coleman. They have the weapons. But with a first-year offensive coordinator, it's not going to flow as well as it did last year. The Packers' defense still isn't anything to run home and rave about, but they do have playmakers such as HaHa Clinton-Dix, Clay Matthews, who took a step back last season, but I expect a rebound season out of him, Nick Perry, who had a great season. But the question is, how can cornerbacks Devon House, Josh Jones, Kevin King, Demarius Randall play? The Falcons will still put up a lot of points in this game because they're playing the Packers' defense. But the question is, will they be able to keep up with Aaron Rodgers, who now has Martellus Bennett to throw to? They now have Jahari Evans from New Orleans on the line. The Packers still have Aaron Rodgers in the deepest wide receiving core in the league. Most definitely top 3. I'd put it top 2 or even 1. The Packers will manage to outlast the Falcons in a wire-to-wire nail-biter. Because when you sit back and look at things, the Falcons' defense isn't all that great either. Certainly not good enough to stop the Packers' receiving core, tight ends, and Rodgers. So I'm picking the Packers to win this game 38-35. Now we have the Dallas Cowboys traveling to MetLife to play the New York Giants, and this will likely be dubbed the game of the week because these two teams are familiar foes facing off for the third time this year. Two high-powered offenses, and the stadium will be electric. The Giants will beat the Cowboys again because they have something that Dallas doesn't, an elite-level defense. The Giants have a top 5 defense in all the NFL and one of the better offenses in the league. Just expected them to do this year. All their games will be close. But I picked the Giants to outlast Dallas because they have that elite level defense that will be able to somewhat, not hold in check, but somewhat contain Dez, Zeke, Dak. Also, the Giants do have an offense of their own. They have playoff Eli Manning, which is a real thing. They have Odell Beckham, who always seems to have a good game versus the Cowboys. Add that to Brandon Marshall now. Sterling Shepard is still there. The Giants have a formidable offense of their own. It's not quite as good as the Cowboys, but it's enough to outlast the Cowboys because of their elite level defense. That sets up an exciting weekend in football where we have the New England Patriots facing off against the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Green Bay Packers versus the New York Giants. And we're going to start with the Patriots and Steelers. And the Steelers will travel to Foxborough, obviously, to play this game because the Patriots are the 1 seed. And this will come down to how disciplined can Mike Tomlin stay with his play calling. I say that because if you look at the last 2 times the Patriots faced off against the Steelers, the games were always close going into half. October of 2016, the score was 14-10 going into half, and the Patriots ended up winning by 2 possessions, 27-16. In last year's AFC Championship game, the score was 17-9, a 1-possession game heading into the locker room, and the Patriots ended up winning 36-17. Bill Belichick has always found a way to pick apart Mike Tomlin, making the perfect halftime adjustments to blow the game wide open, and it'll be the same case in this game. The Steelers will keep it close, Bill Belichick will make the adjustments at halftime, the Patriots will blow the doors off the game. I'm picking the Patriots to win 28-17, making it to the Super Bowl once again. The Packers and Giants now. This will be a rematch of last year's NFC wildcard game where Odell Beckham just choked big time. Again, it had nothing to do with him going to Miami. That what you do Monday has nothing to do with the game on Sunday, but that's neither here nor there. But this season will be different. The Giants have a very good offense, not quite the level of the Packers, but they still have a formidable offense. But simply because the Giants don't have an elite level offense like the Packers, they have an elite level defense, unlike the Packers. But I'm going to pick the Packers to win this game because their weapons offensively are so difficult to manage at one time. The Giants do have elite level receivers, but no big time running back. The Packers don't have a big time running back either, but they have 3 wide receivers you must keep track of at all times. Martellus Bennett and Richard Rodgers at the tight end. A great O-line, something the Giants lack, and a mobile quarterback who can throw dimes on the run in Aaron Rodgers. The Giants it's hard to contain Aaron Rodgers, and as we saw in last year's playoff game, that it was very hard for the Giants to contain Aaron Rodgers in the second half and down the stretch of the game. And the Packers also have the ability to control the tempo of the game, unlike the Giants, because even though you think Ty Montgomery is an elite level back, they do have a committee of running backs who can do the job. This game has all the makings of a classic, and I think that everybody who watches this game won't be disappointed. I'm picking the Packers to win 27-23 in a nail-biter, and that sets up a beautiful Super Bowl 52 matchup. And this is the matchup that we've all been waiting for. Green Bay, the New England Patriots, Rodgers, Brady, McCarthy, Belichick, the legacies of each team. This is the Super Bowl the world has been waiting to see. And honestly, this game is hard to predict. Putting my bias aside, which I've done this entire video, I am a Packers fan, but I've put my bias aside. These two teams aren't very familiar with each other, as Rodgers and Brady's have only played once. And that one time, Rodgers won back in Green Bay. I literally, at this moment, don't know who I'd take in this game. You have two of the best quarterbacks ever, two of the best coaches in the NFL. But I'm going to say the Patriots will come out on top and win their 6th Super Bowl. But in all reality, I believe it'll come down to who has the ball last. Rodgers will put up historic numbers in this game, as will Brady. And I truly feel it'll come down to who has the last ball. I can throw out all the data in the world, but a game of this magnitude will just be historic. You have Aaron Rodgers, his offense, his great line, his great receivers, his great tight ends, versus Brady, who has a solid team around him. He has Bill Belichick around him. And they collide. An offensive genius in Mike McCarthy, a defensive genius in Bill Belichick. They'll battle it out. But I'm going with the Patriots because I feel that Bill Belichick will put them in position to end the game with the ball and just win it all. I have the Patriots coming out on top 26-23 in a late game, exciting nail-biter, a game that we won't be able to stop talking about for months. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed making these. Remember, these are projections, so don't really take them to heart. It's hard to predict the season before it even happens. We have Ryan Tannehill's injury. We've had a lot of injuries in training camp and preseason. At the time of this recording, we've only had a couple of preseason games, so it's hard to just say what's really going to happen. So, like I said, these are my predictions of how I feel the season will play out. And I hope you enjoyed. I look forward to hearing you guys in the comment section thinking what you think the season will look like. And I'll see you there.